All right. Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? Thank you so much for being here for Artists in Residences, episode 7. We're very excited to have you with us. We're very excited to have our guests with us today. My name is Jason Andreessen. I'm the executive director for Baton Rouge Gallery. Want to say a few thank yous before I do anything else. Thank you to our partner for more than 30 years, Breck, giving us our beautiful home in City Park. Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, our home in City Park is closed at the moment, but Baton Rouge Gallery is not closed. We are working hard. Our staff is working hard to bring connection points for you and artists, both in Baton Rouge and outside of Baton Rouge. And obviously, our artists are hard at work. They're creating the works that you might see in their next exhibition, whether it's at the gallery or somewhere else. So Baton Rouge Gallery, the physical location may be closed, but Baton Rouge Gallery itself, it's certainly active and still chugging right along. So thank you guys for being here for Artists in Residences. Artists in Residences is a twice-a-week check-in that we do with artists primarily in the Baton Rouge area, but as you'll hear in just a minute, not necessarily exclusively. It is a twice-a-week episode. Like I said, on Fridays, we will have multiple guests, and then on Tuesdays, we do, as you might have seen already, more of a deep dive kind of mini panel discussion with some of Baton Rouge Gallery artist members on specific media or topics. So if you haven't caught all of the episodes to this point, please feel free to go back through the videos on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. You can see all of them there, just like you'll be able to see this one after the fact. Want to say a quick word of thanks also to our members and our donors. These are people who have given of their time and their pocketbooks to make the very thing we're doing today possible. They're what make it possible for us to do the exhibitions and the programming that we do even before the COVID emergency. So without our members, without our donors, we're not doing much of anything. So thank you to every one of our members and donors. We really, really appreciate it. If you are not already a member or donor, you can certainly become one today. There's no better time, no more important time to show your support for the gallery and for arts in Baton Rouge than now. You can do that at batonrougegallery.org. You can make a one-time donation or become a member. Memberships start at $25. And it's a great way to support both local artists and a local arts organization that's been supporting artists for more than 50 years. So if you haven't already gotten involved that way, please consider doing so. In a minute, we're going to hear from, like I said before, a number of artists, but we want to hear from you as an artist as well. The way that we've been doing that since the COVID emergency hit has been with the Flat Curve Gallery. If you're not already familiar, the Flat Curve Gallery is an online, free to participate gallery that you can submit works that you've created since the national emergency was declared on March 13th. And that's literally the only rule. It is intentionally open-ended. It is intentionally open to anyone and everyone, as long as the work that you submit was created since March 13th. We've had 2-year-olds, we've had professional artists, and everything in between. So if you, your loved ones, your children, anyone you know is creating work while quarantined, while staying at home, please consider going to batonrougegallery.org and sharing that work with us through the Flat Curve Gallery. We post roughly 7 to 8 pieces per day on both social media and on our website, so please consider checking that out. I also want to give a shout out to our friends at Playmakers. Todd Henry and the group over there have been doing great things, and they actually shared some state secrets with us to let us in on this platform that we use to connect with you guys through Facebook and YouTube. So if you haven't already, please go to Playmakers Facebook page and check out Playmakers Live, which is a weekly series that they do with actors and the folks who make Playmakers possible. So quick shout out to Playmakers as well. So today we are very lucky, very fortunate to have 3 artists with us. Marcus McAllister, who is a longtime Baton Rouge Gallery artist member. We have Dan Tague, who is an incredible artist based in New Orleans, but was a participant of the Flat Curve Gallery, had an incredible piece that he shared with the Flat Curve. And then we're going to close out today's episode with Cubs the Poet, Baton Rouge's Poet Laureate, with a really, really special interactive-based piece. So, but first, we're going to start off with Marcus McAllister. We are going to go ahead and bring him in. If you would, everybody, please say hi to.
Oh,
We can get it. There we go. Hey, Marcus.
hey,
How are you?
very good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for being here. Thanks for signing on with us.
Be here. Good to be here.
Excellent. So let's start off just by saying or asking you, how are you and how are you dealing with this COVID pandemic situation?
I'm doing fine. I'm over here in my Parisian studio, so I'm here in Paris. I've been here for a long time. We've been under lockdown since the 17th of March, so it's been like 6 weeks or 7 weeks now that we've been in quarantine. So not going
Wow.
out. I've been pretty much here in my studio. I was actually sick, probably with the COVID-19, the first 2 weeks of that. So that kind of knocked me down pretty well. And it's not a fun one. But I didn't have anything really serious. I had a minor case, but it did knock me out for 2 weeks. And then since then, I've just been here in the studio, me and my dog, trying to get work done. It's been a weird time, though. It's been really interesting here in the studio.
How so? Explain.
But it's just been a weird time trying to get work done. I mean, I spend a lot of time alone here in my studio, and suddenly doing nothing but being alone in the studio, and it's been really hard to get work done. I mean, really difficult. I've talked to other artists. I
Yeah.
think this is really across the board. It's a really tough time to be getting work done. I sometimes dream of having open time in the studio for weeks on end, and suddenly it's here, and it's like, oh wait, and it's been rough. So I've been really
Sure.
painting for about a week, and before that, I was just working my sketchbook. That's about all I could do. Once I was well again, I had about a month of nothing but sketchbook work. That was about the speed I was at. I did more than usual in my sketchbook, but so I was just doing drawing. I did a lot of drawing in front of a film on Netflix. I'd sit down, sprawl out in the living room with different photos and stuff, and just draw and just doing what I could, kind of letting go of trying to be productive. It just wasn't working. So yeah, get moments like that. I've been getting good work in the end in my sketchbook and having a lot of fun getting ideas, just letting it go. So it's kind of nice being in play mode, letting it back,
Yeah.
sitting back.
Well, for those who are watching, please feel free to, if you're on Facebook, please feel free to comment if you have questions for Marcus or have anything you might want to let Marcus know. But Marcus, let me ask you about subject matter. Have you tried to kind of address the situation we're all dealing with your work, kind of from a subject standpoint?
Not necessarily. I have some pieces in the sketchbook that I just finished a sketchbook a week ago. So I had I actually did about a month and a half. I had a couple pages where were often motions and mentions of what's going on. I did have an image of a Japanese spirit, an amabi, which I'd heard about, and so I did a drawing of that. So there are elements. What I end up doing, subject matter, I have a whole bunch of birds, which have been in my work for a long time. But for the past month or two, that's a lot of what I've been doing. So there's probably something to do with a lot of birds in flight. So I think much more of a metaphorical the way it's come through in my work. These birds trying to be free and flying. So while we're all stuck at home.
Okay. So I'm hearing that it's against the rules for you to bring up
Well, I will see if he's coming over.
furry
Grum,
friend.
Grum, Grum. He's busy chewing something. So yeah, he's in his bed right over there. If he
Perhaps
comes
another.
over, I'll let him.
There you
Hey,
go.
Grum, Grum. He's not paying attention.
So Marcus, we spend a lot of time at the gallery talking about local art, about Baton Rouge, about the state of Louisiana. But you are one of our artist members who does not live in the state of Louisiana. You're actually based in Paris, but you did go to LSU. You certainly have a strong following here in Baton Rouge. Can you tell us about kind of your background? You're originally from Arkansas, went to LSU, and then Paris. Can you walk us through that process?
I'm from Little Rock, so that's where my parents still live. So that's kind of home. And then I went to LSU, ended up getting a painting and drawing degree, Bachelor of Fine Arts from LSU. After that, I ended up going to New York for a few years. And it was from New York that I came to Paris to visit, met some French. And next thing I know, I was headed to Paris. So I've been in Paris now for 24 years. And couldn't tell you why Paris. It just happened. I felt at home the first time I came here, and it's been here in Paris that I started showing and having a full time doing artwork here in my studio. So it's just the place that felt like home. So it's been nice coming back to the United States. I've been with the Baton Rouge Gallery since 2005, which is actually the first place that I showed back in the United States after coming over to Paris. So that's kind of it's made Baton Rouge even more so of a sort of a home base for me. So it's good.
And how do you think Paris and France have impacted your work or your studio practice?
Well, one is where I feel at home, so that's good. Also, art history, also medieval history, something I've always really liked. So I think being here in Paris, being in France, being in Europe has changed. Another big change or big effect on me has been being another language. Changing languages, changing cultures has been a big influence on my artwork, and just maybe more than influence, maybe a stimulus into what I'm doing. Because bringing in another language in my sketchbook, I go English, French, back and forth. So that's been a real stimulus and a real source of energy for me.
Sure. So one of the things that I think a lot of people who are familiar with your work, you brought up sketchbooks earlier, and sketchbooks are really, I think, central to your artistic practice. Can you talk about your sketchbook and what it means to you?
Well, my sketchbook started at SU. I think it was in Michael Crespo's watercolor class, one of my first painting classes, that we were told you have to keep a sketchbook. And so I was it. So I've had a sketchbook with me ever since. This is the one that's ongoing. This is number 120. And I've always got this cover so that I can carry it with me. I've got right in front of me I'm kind of having a hard time. 119. This is the one I've done in the past month and a half. So just to give a quick point, these are what I've done in the past while I was here filling up, and you see there's lots of birds. So this is the one that I did while here in quarantine. So let me see if I can find these. You look at Amabi, it's a spirit supposed to be preventing. Oh no, I'm not going to find it so easily. But so I always have the sketchbook with me. That's it. Here, take on it.
Wow. Yeah.
But I always have the sketchbook with me, and I just fill it up from day to day. So this one I started mid-March, just before we shut down. And like I said, there were a lot that I would do just in front of a film, doing a different drawing. So, and what's nice is that this gives me, there's a 6 weeks, generally between 2 and 3 months sketchbook. This one was 6 weeks, and it's now a slice of time for me. So this is the confinement sketchbook for me. We'll see.
So your sketchbooks are kind of a timestamp,
yep.
Kind of a historical.
I don't go back. So it's a day-to-day. I just fill up a page. Like I can show you, this is the ongoing sketchbook. This was last night. It's reference photos. So while I was watching a film last night, the owl right here, I just did this afternoon. So this is the page that's still open. And then when I turn it, here we go. I just kind of fill them up. So they do become very much I have 120 of these now. So I've got almost 30 years of sketchbooks in my studio that I can go through, and I can see, these are more sketchbooks. These are 117, 118. So these are the past 6 months, past 4 months before the confinement. It's kind of interesting. I can actually follow what I was working on just before this virus came. And then I've got this sketchbook that is really a record of what I was doing. I can see the first one. There's a couple pages. Like I know this was just before getting sick. This was the first page I kind of did while I was sick. And here for me, whenever time I look at this double page, this is the moment that I was no longer sick. Wow. Coming out of it. So I know when I opened the sketchbook, I remember that's where I was at that moment. It's kind of a nice image. I think that's actually a self-portrait from a photo of me coming out of the ocean years ago. So this is, I noticed it right at the beginning. I was doing a bunch of images of this hermit from Hieronymus Bosch. And so a series I did years ago, and suddenly he popped up again at the moment that we were shutting everything down. So it's nice. A sketchbook, I always tell when I do sketchbook workshops with people, is keep everything. Everything is interesting. Even if it's not like a good drawing that you're going to frame and hang someplace, but it can be a source of inspiration. It can be a trace of what you were going through. So when I go through the sketchbook, I've got the past 6 weeks of confinement here from day to day, and see what kind of came out of that. Sketchbooks are good.
And you actually take pages from your sketchbook and frame them and use them in gallery exhibitions.
Yep. So there are pages that end up being worked into themselves. I will cut them out, put a photocopy back into place to keep the source material. But yeah, so some end up being real works, finished
Right.
works, and others are just ideas that continue. So and what's interesting is when I do show a piece, that means if I cut this page out, there's always the other side that's hidden. And I like that idea of having to choose what you're going to show. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to bring up some examples of your work, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking about media.
Okay.
I know you've worked with acrylic and watercolor. You've done even used crayon in some works as well, right?
Well, like this piece that you just put up, that's actually a painting from a year ago. I've been doing a whole series. You can actually see behind me one that I'm working on. It's in the similar element. And that one's another one. These images on top of with birds and human figures. There's a shaman idea, a transformation idea, an energy idea, and a lot of it, like that's again the falcon. And that one is done in charcoal on acrylic, and everything's sealed. Like you can see behind me, that's the figure is actually done in charcoal on paint, and then I'm now painting over it. You've got to seal that. I've got a lot of the things in my work that are dealing with kind of spiritual ideas and energies and connections. So there's an owl holding a key. These are some really recent works. This is from last year. Most of these are from last year. Some of these were even in a show. That's fun. Yeah, really recent. This idea of there's an idea of protection, these animal spirits that are protection that give force. So this one, the companion piece is behind me, which I have almost finished. You can see the little bits of light I've just got to add to it. Actually, this is one I've just been working on the past week, that it's now almost finished. So I feel like I'm back in gear. This is good.
Good.
So, yeah, interesting.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say the use of media and kind of being willing to try new things and try different media out. I imagine your sketchbook is a big part of that.
In the sketchbook, getting the idea of play where it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. I can just kind of put things together. A lot of layering is in my work from the sketchbooks because of layering watercolor ink. I'm always trying to find that in my paintings, trying to have some of the spontaneity of drawing, for example. That's why I've been using the different techniques with layering of images, but also with the charcoal on acrylic. It's not classical painting, but then I'm not really interested in working out an image and then just executing it. So a lot of what I do is I put stuff down, paintings behind me that have been cold for a while that I'm now being back into. I don't necessarily know where they're going. I have ideas. I've got threads I know that I'm going to pull on, waiting to see where they're going to take me. So that's kind of the point for me. I like to find stuff, like I do with my sketchbook. These are tools for me to discover about myself and about the world, as opposed to me trying to. So I always like to say that I'm asking questions and not trying to give answers. That's what for me seems much more interesting, is to keep asking questions. Of course, when you ask questions, you find answers. But the answers that are really interesting are the ones that open more questions. And that's the one I'm really interested in.
Sure.
We'll see. Keep on keeping on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marcus. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about your work or how things are going?
Everything's going fine. It's a really weird time. I had 2 big shows this spring that were canceled, and in normal times I'd be really freaked out. But right now we're all in the same boat. Everything's up in the air. So it's actually been nice. I haven't been able to get too freaked out about it. I'm like, yeah, that's something. We're going to see how things happen. And so that's helped me sort of calm down anxiety, just get back into work.
Right.
Keep on making images. So that's what I could tell everybody else. Keep creating, keep doing, keep making. That's all we can do, right? We don't know what the future's going to hold. So.
Yep. Well, we're glad you're doing well. We're glad things are going okay. And for anybody who would like to see more of Marcus's work, you can go to batonrougegallery.org/Marcus McAllister. You can see examples of his work. Inquire if you're interested in purchasing pieces of Marcus's. But thank you again, Marcus, for being a part of this. And thanks for staying in your residence and helping to flatten the curve where you are.
Yay.
All right. Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. So our thanks again to Marcus for being a part of Artists in Residences. Right now, we're going to turn our attention to another artist who got involved in Baton Rouge, even though he lives outside of Baton Rouge, but he's a little closer. Dan Tague is a New Orleans-based artist. He sent work and shared work with the Flat Curve Gallery. You might have seen it on Facebook or in our Instagram feed. An incredible work. Dan Tague has an incredible resume. His works are in permanent collections all over, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and his career to date. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and bring him in, and we can say hi.
Hello. How's it going?
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course. Yeah, it's great.
So I guess my first question should be, how are you? How are you holding up with everything going on? And hope everybody in your world is safe and
yeah, everything's great. New Orleans is a majorly social city, so it's pretty weird not to be constantly 20 hours a day around people. Right.
Well, can you, for those of you who, or for those who might be watching that aren't familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about your career and your work?
I take photographs of money. I make portraits out of money. Let's see, this way. Here's one. I'm trying to do the mirror image. There's one right there. So I take currency and fold it to find messages that are in the letters that are already there. This one behind me, that's cash rolls everything around me. The work, I guess, becomes a bit more political. I also like to have some humor and pop culture with it. So a lot of the phrases that I fold are based on song lyrics, song titles, phrases, popular phrases, and some political, some social, some just having fun with it. And then I photograph these tiny things. They're quite small, like maybe, and then photograph them. And that one's a newer series that I've done, also in addition, smaller. But usually they're about 40 by 40 inches, large scale.
Wow. And that that series with folded currency, that's something that, if I understand correctly, you started right after Hurricane Katrina.
During the aftermath of this. Yeah. It was so my studio was on the first floor of a building in mid-city that received probably, I guess, around 8 feet of water. So, and my house was just on the end of the block, so both of them were completely ruined, devastated by the flood. So I was on the second floor and rooftop of the building that my studio was on the first floor of. So I got to watch my work just be destroyed and kind of drift out with the flood. It's funny that I can laugh now, but it's a strange purge I didn't ask for. But you just, either it can ruin you or you just have to figure things out. I made work out of other mediums, books and maps and things, so it wasn't a big stretch to go into another medium of paper with money. But you process things as you process things as an artist, right? You're always constantly processing, whether it's in your mind or whether it's physical. And I had a couple of bills on me, and so I made work out of it and folded The State of Fear out of it, which the Whitney Museum bought, which wasn't terrible.
And that was the first.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about this series as it's progressed? Because my understanding is that you started off with American currency because that was what was in your pocket.
Yeah.
But you, over the years, started to introduce foreign currency as well.
I did. Yeah. So, and I mean, in the process, they've gotten better as my skills of photography gotten better because I'm, self-taught. Which digital age makes things much easier. But as my equipment got better, the photographs got larger and much better. But the biggest thing is that I am doing the U.S. bills now in black and white, and I'm using global currency, which is you can make these really amazingly painterly, colorful compositions, which are in full color. So one went more theatrical and one went more painterly, kind of how they both broke apart. But I was asked to be in a biennial in Paraguay and was asked to fold some currencies from all over Central and South and America. And just seeing all the colors really sparked an interest in making this a full series of the colorful currency.
I'm bringing up some images now of past works of yours.
Yeah.
Feel free to comment and give us maybe a little context if there should be any to.
Sure. Well, I think we're always in a state of fear of the war on something, right? Whether it's internal, external. It seems like we have a lot of internal wars right now. Like, especially, I don't know, worrying about cheap oil and gas prices. I don't mind if oil goes to $1. Fine. Okay. Maybe that'll focus on more sustainable energy. Fight the power. There you go. You see where I go with this work. Yeah. So I like to play on, of course, fight the power. The kids are right. I think I'm folded this one because the messages I was folding were just becoming too dire, like the end is near. So I had to do something more optimistic. But the kids will be all right. Some hope for the future, right?
So is there a an average number of bills that it takes to create a certain piece?
Not necessarily, no. The first show I did of these in 2008 was all single bills. It was all a 5 or 1 or so. But you really exhaust that quickly. So, I mean, then you're just starting to fold some real garbage. So you can't really use it. But I would say majority of these bills are usually 3 bills. Is pretty standard to get just about whatever I need to get. I like to, and also if I go more than that, I can't fold it anymore, and I wouldn't be able to photograph it.
Sure.
So, and the only thing is I press it between books, like a leaf or butterfly or wing or something, to get it to stay flat. So sometimes I forget they're there, and I go through an art book or something, and like up pops out, trust no one. Like, oh god. So.
Talk to us about the piece that you submitted for the Flat Curve Gallery. Obviously, a piece in response to our current situation. But tell us about maybe first how you heard about Flat Curve Gallery, but then specifically about the piece that you submitted for that.
Sure. I saw it on Instagram. I thought, like, what an amazing, fun project. I wanted to be part of it. I liked the extreme inclusiveness of it was amazing. All ages, all styles. I thought that was really important right now. To feel very connected. I thought it was like, what a great idea. Oh yeah, here it is.
So tell us about this piece. How did you come to this? Oh, you have the actual piece.
Yeah.
Why am I showing it?
That's the good thing about there we go. That's the good thing about let's see. Oh, there we go. So that's the good thing about what I do is that I don't need a lot of room. So I can still continue to fold the bills, and I have my book of world currency, so lots and lots of different colorful things there. Here's one I did. There you go. Love wins. That was a good one. I thought it was a really moment of unity when York Governor Cuomo gave that great Love Wins speech. So I don't need a lot of room to fold these up. And photographing them, the light kits and things are also quite small. The camera's the biggest part of this whole operation. So the only thing I can do now is process them. So I can't have access to sending them off to a printer or a framer.
Sure.
And I'm not and I don't like to keep a lot of stock anyway. So I like to print it as a show comes. I have a few in the studios about it.
Gotcha. Well, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about how your work or how you view your work might have changed or been impacted by the current situation. Obviously, a lot of the discussion surrounding COVID and our response to it has to do with money, and whether it's stimulus packages or getting the economy back on its feet, all these kinds of themes that we hear about in the news. Have those conversations driven you to look at the work you've previously created differently, or the work that you're doing now?
I just think now it's more of an issue because the stock market isn't really isn't in a bad place, because I guess huge companies are buying things pennies on a dollar right now, so they're going to be fine. But I think there's always been an economic disparity anyway. Social distancing, that's not a new phenomenon. It just means something different right now. But we've always had social distance, whether it was economic class or gender or race. I think this is maybe more of a bonding moment over the essentialness of money and maybe new paradigms. for instance, oil prices being so cheap and gas being cheap, and that's somehow a bad thing for everyone. I don't understand. So maybe those companies can, have to rethink it and be more sustainable, and we'll go to newer sources of energy.
Right.
I guess my glass is half full of something. But I think the economic part of it is the least of concerns for me. I health concerns and people in bad positions and not having the resources to be able to get the help they need is more concern for me, or people not having access to food or things like that. And I like these ideas of all of a sudden a lot more effort going to helping homeless, finding shelter, finding food, finding places to have showers and cleaning clothes. I hope this effort continues in this stride it's going now. That would be wonderful as well.
Yeah. We had a question sent in about improvisation.
Have you ever give up a project? So this was funny. Someone asked me to fold something that had an accident, and I said there's no way it can happen, so I gave up on it. And then it just kind of plagued me for a while, and there had just one eureka moment where I put two V's together and made an X, and I solved my X burden, and I folded the phrase "sexy burden" so I could put an X in it. So now, I think every letter is there. I mean, getting the letters next to each other sometimes can really prove to be difficult because I'm limited on how many bills I can have. Otherwise, it would just be, impossible to fold.
Sure.
But X was my nemesis for a bit.
Fair enough.
I get a lot of the mint stamps. I get a lot of letters too that people don't realize, like a J and things like that. The K's on a $1 bill, there's a mint stamp that gives me quite a few extra letters. Surprisingly, there is no P at all on any bill.
Really?
I have to use an R and fold one of the legs back.
Huh.
So I got around that one too, but there is no P, oddly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned the Whitney buying or having your first work in their collection. Can you tell us about having your work, received so well by institutions like the Whitney, and why you think your work has resonated at institutions like that?
People like money. I mean, isn't that everything? Don't all artists get constantly bombarded by every museum about donating money or giving something or this or that? I get hit for money or artwork donations. I would say 10 times a week sometimes on a good week.
Wow.
Money's everything, isn't it? Right now, it's pretty much the dominant conversation right now. Is from the government is how do we get economy rolling, and if this outbreak causes more deaths than weighing out which is more important, I would say I don't know. Don't open up businesses if people are gonna get sick and be ill. I think the welfare of people is much more important. Yeah. I'm a much bigger fan of universal healthcare over universal war.
Yeah. Had another question sent in. Do you consider the folded bill or the photograph to be the art?
A photograph by far, yeah. The folded bill, I mean, it's. I have sold a couple of them. Honolulu Museum wanted the folded bill and the photograph. They framed them together, which I thought was interesting.
Oh.
But the folded bill, I guess it would be a bit of a sculpture, I suppose. But I'm not indifferent to them being art, but I definitely see my practice as the photograph should, and the bill maybe is more of a prop. Because when they're bigger, and especially when you see the colors, when they're larger, you don't just see the message. You get to see the engravings, and you get to see how the colors mingle. Or in the case of the black and white ones, it really becomes a bit more theatrical, and you see the things you wouldn't normally see. When they're small, you just kind of see it as a bill folded with words on it. When they're large format, I think there's just a lot more nuance and but there's a lot more artworthiness, I think, in the photographs.
Interesting. Okay. So if somebody's interested in learning more about your work, seeing more of your work, where's the best place for them to do that?
Our website is Message in the Money. So, yeah. And Instagram, Message in the Money as well.
Excellent.
So Instagram, of course, is much easier to update by the second than
sure.
But there's a lot of good representation on the website and CDs and things like that. All the pertinent things.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for organizing this. Yeah, this is wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to hear more about your work and see some more examples and be able to hear kind of the backstory behind it all.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing.
Stay
safe.
You too. Bye out there.
All right. Bye. All right. Our thanks to Dan Tague for joining us. And we're going to close out today's show by getting a little more local. We're going to bring in Cubs the Poet, who is Baton Rouge's Poet Laureate. I think he's with us. Let's see.
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, no problem.
Taking the time.
No problem at all.
All right.
I really like these artists' work. I've seen that money folded all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you lived in New Orleans for a time?
Well, yeah. When I first started writing poetry, I would set up on Royal Street in the French Quarter and write, like from 11 to 7.
Wow.
Just for, whoever wanted a poem.
Yeah.
And I became
for those who aren't familiar with your work, tell us a little bit. Tell us about your practice and how you get other people involved, and let us in on it.
Well, yeah, so I do, custom poems on a typewriter. People give me a topic. We kind of discuss it. I have a background in psychology, so I like to kind of delve deeper than just like, yes or no questions. And people open up. Actually, like I said, I started on the street in the French Quarter, and I did that for maybe 4 years, and then other poets would start to do it. So I wanted to figure out how to make it evolve and grow. Because, like what I noticed on the street, most people, were traveling to a restaurant or tourists, so they kind of wanted to, hop around. So, in the Quarter, you have a lot of musicians who busk, and they'll listen for one song, tip, and then keep it moving. And I realized they did the same thing with the poetry, but they actually wanted to open up more. So I had to figure out how to provide space for that. So, now I go to weddings and I write books, and that's been kind of a new thing for me over the past 2 years, which is a lot of fun for me to do. But
wow.
So I do that, and then I also recently started painting because I kind of anticipated there would be moments when I would have writer's block, or like all writers have moments where they're not inspired. So I started to paint because I realized the block came from the fact that there aren't words to describe certain feelings or thoughts. But if I could express it visually, then the creativity still flows. So I started to paint and illustrate, and that's been pretty cool to kind of join the visuals with the words, or kind of like vice versa.
Yeah. And I mentioned that you are, I believe, still Baton Rouge's Poet Laureate. They're in the process of finding the next Poet Laureate. But can you tell us that the Poet Laureate for the city is an honor bestowed by the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge? Can you tell us about that process?
Mayor has the final say so. But
Gotcha.
the process for me was, since I'm the first one, it was a little like forming. Once I received the award, it was kind of more so, how do we structure what it means to be Poet Laureate of Baton Rouge? So we did workshops with students where they would actually, it's in the other room. I actually framed one of. I do like little questionnaires for the kids. So, like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite animal? And she wrote it all and listed it all down. And it looks like a piece of art, the way she kind of explained her favorite things. So the new process was very interesting because all of the poets, varied. Like it was one guy is one guy is a teacher that teaches, so he has a perspective of more so teaching, poetry and how to write. Another one is a lady that's, I think, 70 years old who is a social worker. And then you have I can't remember. I don't know if I'm supposed to say like who these people are, but it was interesting to judge the poetry knowing their background, because I got to see their resume, I got to see their nominating statements, and then they had to submit 8 poems. And it was cool to see, like for one of the candidates, I didn't read the opening statement or the resume. I just went straight to their poetry. And then for the other one, I kind of did it the other way around. And it's very interesting to see how that plays a part in deciding who would be the next poet laureate. Which is also something that I like when I'm writing. Most poets and poetry comes from the poet's experience, right? And when I write, it comes from someone else's experience. So there's like a connection between the poem, the poet, and the reader. And I really like to play around with how people come up with what they want the poems to be about. There's this workshop that I did where you would be blindfolded and we would have a conversation about, things you like, what do you think beauty is? And it really forces someone to go inside and think about it rather than immediately have an answer due to seeing something or hearing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
absolutely. Well, rather than talk too much about, talking about your work, I thought we would go ahead and take the opportunity to let people see it in action. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in one of Baton Rouge Gallery's wonderful, wonderful volunteers. This is Charlie. Say hi, Charlie.
Hey, Cub.
How's it going?
How are you doing?
Good.
Charlie's a longtime volunteer at the gallery. You might have seen her behind the bar or helping out somewhere else at the gallery, but we wanted to give her the opportunity to interact with you Cubs and see what comes of it. So take it away.
So do you have a prompt or a theme that you would like the poem to be about?
No, I actually I haven't thought about anything. So
that's great. That's a start. What do you want it to be for you or for somebody else?
No, it could be for me. I can give you a theme if you'd like.
Okay.
So how about gardening? Because that is what I'm doing this weekend.
Okay, so I have 2 questions, right?
Okay.
What tool do you identify with in a garden? And what is it, like vegetable? What type of garden are you planning to?
Flowers.
So then what type of flower do you identify with?
Oh.
Take your time.
Okay.
I'm gonna line up.
Well, when I think of like flowers and gardening, I just want to have something that I don't kill. So I think the quickest thing that I can think about is, those like snake plants. They have, they look like cactus, but they're not. And they like grow long. I have like a picture of it right here, actually. I can show you because I have one.
What is it is a, yeah. I don't know the name of them, but I've seen
Yeah, they're called like snake plants. But anyway, those, I don't kill those so easily.
And then the tool, and it could be your favorite tool, or like what comes to mind?
Favorite tool. I mean, just a shovel. I don't know. And then some gloves. Gloves could work. Keep your hands dirty.
What's your favorite season?
Fall.
Almost done. Almost. Anything
Oh
else?
no, you're fine. I'm already impressed. So.
Okay, cool. So now I have to read it.
Okay.
It's called You Dig by Cubs the Poet. Gardens and galleries, flowers dancing in the seasons, shovels dig deeper than good questions. Fall, we have fallen back into our soils, our souls isolated like snakes taking care of themselves. Our hands are clean, but our thumbs are still green. To dream, to blossom, to watch the birds mimic the magic of growth. We are learning the nature of our own garden during these times. You did.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I do.
That was amazing.
Wow.
You have to figure out how to get. I want to mail it to you.
Oh, I would love that. Well, when you said psychology earlier, I was thinking, oh God, I don't want to be like crying or anything, you know?
The craziest thing that's happened, people cry, but the craziest thing that happened so far, this guy, had me write a poem, commissioned me to write this poem for his girlfriend. I wrote it, and then he told me to read it to her. And then when I was finished, he was on his knee and proposing to his girlfriend at the time.
Oh, wow.
That was crazy. Because, if he would have told me ahead of time, I probably would have been too nervous to write it. She might have said no or something.
Wow.
But yeah.
Cubs, tell us about that typewriter.
This one, it's funny because it's actually, this is, the name of it is Corona. This is a Corona typewriter. But I've stayed on it because I kind of feel like, I'm still giving hope and positivity every time I write, using the typewriter. But I have 12 different typewriters. Each one has like a different flow. So like, I have one that's from 1912, and I have to peck, like push each key down so it slows down my thinking. And then I have one that's a little more up to more modern, so it's kind of I can type without looking, and that allows me to think quicker. So it's and also have one that goes good with music. It sounds like a percussion, so I write sometimes with musicians poetry while they play. So these typewriters are just like so impressive, and just how long they last and how durable they are. I've actually during the quarantine and self-isolation, I've actually written more poetry. Well, I shouldn't say more, but I've actually finished a book of poems while being, quarantined. And I think just like kind of unplugging and like not watching the news, not, on Instagram, but just like me and my typewriter sitting on the porch, watching people sit on their porch or watching people go through this thing of quarantine, but like just having the like complete focus to finish a project and not have the distractions. I was talking to my friends, like whenever we create and we're stressed or, we want to take a break, we have the option to go to a bar or we have the option to hang out, at each other's houses. And now there is no way to, distract ourselves with outside stimulus. So it's like, I really had the opportunity to finish a book and I feel blessed, to have that opportunity, but also to have it through a typewriter,
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Is the book a response? Is it kind of Corona themed work?
Well, I mean, I think I would have to include that in it, but the poetry is kind of, you could say loosely, but like it's just based around. I have a 1-year-old, and so it's like her view on us going through this time, and it's like we still find normacy in like walking the block. We have a dog, so we take the dog for a walk, but she's in the stroller, and kind of one of the chapters is like the view from the stroller of the outside world, and then kind of like there's a chapter about her sitting in a high chair, and these are all just little poems about different things she's observing, which is pretty cool. It kind of just keeps our mind focused on the present because there's so much you can get lost into. Like, you know, like we have a friend who has a restaurant and she's not going to open back up because of the way the restaurant was. This is in New York, the way it's set up. You know, there's no way to have 6 feet of separation in her restaurant. So she's not going to open that. So it's like, I don't even want to think about stuff like that, but you do have to, you know, get prepared and adapt. But it's just like doing these calls, right? I was kind of weirded out in the beginning when I started doing them because it didn't feel personal. But then I realized, you know, well, don't look at it that way. See the fact that we could still be in contact some sort of way, you know? And
right.
But that's been
make the best of it.
Yeah, right. Definitely make the best.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to learn more about your work, find out more, and maybe even get a notification when that book comes out, what's the best way for people that can connect with you?
Before I say that, also I'm doing, just to plug myself, I'm doing a Mother's Day, you know, push. So, you know, if you have a story that, you know, means the most to you with your mom, or I say Mother Nature, whether it's like somebody who's a mother figure, if you're a mother yourself, just hit me up via Instagram, Cubs the Poet, or my email, cubsthepoet@gmail. And then I also have a website, cubsthepoet.com, where there's art and stuff for sale as well.
Wow. Okay. Anything else that people should know about your work or where to find it?
Not really. I just, you know, I think truly that everybody is a poem. And if you ever want a poem, to just please hit me up. I'm still, you know, at the point where people, you know, laugh at me and say I shouldn't do this, but I don't have a set price on my poetry because, you know, it's all going, each poem is always going to be what it's supposed to be. You know, like I used to write and people would give me 50 cents or like a $100 bill. And I would always tell them, don't tell me what you're paying me before I write this poem. Let's talk about it after. But throwing that out there too. Interesting.
And then you fold the $100 bill up to make a phrase, right?
Poetry still matters. That's what my dollar bill says.
Right, there you go. Now there's no P. There's no P on American currency. That's what I heard. I have it on good authority. There's no P in American currency.
That's why we've never worked together.
Yeah, well. That's what today is for.
Yes.
All right. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll find a way to get that poem to you.
That would be great. Thanks for having me. Thank you again. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
See you soon. Cubs, thank you so much for sharing your work with us. We really appreciate it. And for doing a custom poet for Charlie, we really appreciate that as well.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It's been a good time.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
Thank you. We'll look forward to having you in the physical gallery soon after we get things back online.
I'm down.
All right. Thanks so much.
Have a good day.
You too. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for Artists in Residences. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in on Tuesday. We'll have our next episode. As I mentioned, and as you see at the ticker at the bottom, now is a wonderful time for you to show your support for Baton Rouge Gallery. If you've ever thought about becoming a member or making a donation, a one-time donation, obviously we could certainly use your support, as could every other arts organization in town. But it's a simple and easy way for you to make an impact on local art. Memberships start at $25. They go up from there. But like I said before, it's a great way to support both local artists and an organization that's been working to connect Baton Rouge audiences with local artists and artists outside of Baton Rouge as well for more than 50 years. So please consider going to batonrougegallery.org to become a member or to make a gift. Please keep up with us on Facebook and on Instagram, where we've got more content coming. We'll be finishing up our Artist Member of the Week feature with Brian Kelly, sharing works of his that you can see on our website. And I should mention before we go, another great way to support local artists is by buying local artists' work. BatonRougeGallery.org, if you go to the website, you can actually find hundreds of available pieces that you can purchase from printmakers, painters, glass artists, you name it, everything in between, photographers. So please consider checking out BatonRougeGallery.org and going through the more than 60 artists who are a part of the gallery and seeing what works are available. So until next time, thank you so much for being a part of Artists in Residences, and we will see you next time on Tuesday. Thank you, guys. Everybody stay safe.